Alright, UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia just wrapped up. Let's talk about it. Let's get into what happened and what I believe should be next for these fighters. Alright, so first, obviously, big main event. We had Nassourdine Imavov defeat Israel Adesanya by big second round TKO. Got him with a nasty, quick right overhand and then put him out pretty bad on the ground against the cage. Honestly, I've never really liked Israel Adesanya, but it still is a little weird to see him like this. I don't hate the guy necessarily, and I think he's a really fun fighter. At least the idea of him is a really fun fighter. He's very skilled, very technical, but what we saw today is that he's just not the top guy at middleweight anymore. We saw that decisively. He's lost to Dricus du Plessis, Sean Strickland, Alex Pereira, and now Nassourdine Imavov. He is currently on a 3-fight loss streak, 1-4 in his last 5, which is kind of funny because that one win is arguably the best of his career. So he has that at least, but aside from that, he's now lost to Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis, and Nassourdine Imavov 3 in a row. The last 2 of those finishes. Imavov, on the other hand, is now riding a 4-fight win streak. Adesanya, Allen, Cannonier, and Dolidze. Before that, he has a really close loss to Sean Strickland, which is not a bad loss at all, looking back. And before that, he has a win over Joaquin Buckley, surging welterweight contender. So Nassourdine Imavov's record is looking more and more impressive. He looked good in that fight. Obviously, in the first round, Adesanya was controlling that in the striking. He looked a lot more active, more confident. I thought he looked really good in that first round. I thought he looked as good as he did against du Plessis. He was landing those leg kicks. He was landing those kicks up top nearly. The question mark kick nearly landing. But he lost. He got caught with an uppercut in that first round that you could see kind of rocked him a little bit. Then in that second round, as soon as Adesanya starts to back up, he's just vulnerable, and people know that now. Du Plessis capitalized on that. Pereira was the first to capitalize on that, and now it's Imavov as Adesanya backs up as he moves toward the cage. Nassourdine Imavov hits him with a nasty overhand right, puts him down, jumps on him, follows up with big shots that put him out pretty bad. Ref steps in. I saw some people saying early stoppage. I saw some people saying late stoppage. In my opinion, that means it's a perfect one. The fight was clearly over. Adesanya was out, but he wasn't lying there on the ground for 10 minutes, so that's good to see. At this point, Israel Adesanya, I think it's time to say goodbye. You've had a lot of massive fights for the UFC. You kind of carried the UFC from like 2019 to 2022. Good for you, man. You had a great career. A lot of fun fights, a lot of not so fun fights. But I think it's done now. I don't think Adesanya wants to be a guy that's fighting 2 or 3 shots away from the title. And that's if we're being generous. In all like reality, he should probably win at least 3, maybe even 4 fights before he would get another shot at the title. This is a guy that's 36, I believe now, maybe even 37. And he is now 3 losses in a row. It's going to be a long shot for him to get back up there, and he is going to have to take on down someone lower down the totem pole if he does want to fight again. I don't think that's what he wants to do. I don't think the fans necessarily have that much appetite for Adesanya fighting 5 through 10 ranked middleweights. Adesanya, you had a great career. I think it's time to hang it up. I don't think anybody would be upset about that. And then Imavov, on the other hand, I think it's time for a title shot. Now, we've got Khamzat Chimaev in line. I don't think either of those guys necessarily need to have a title eliminator. I don't think it would even really be good for the division that those guys fight each other because du Plessis pretty active. I don't see him taking all that much damage in this Sean Strickland fight, assuming he wins it. I think he can make a pretty quick turnaround. I think Khamzat Chimaev is next, but after that, I think Imavov has the right at this point to sit out and wait for the next title shot. I think it's good to have a lineup in the middleweight division when we haven't really had great contenders for a while. So that's good. Let's go with that. Next, we've got the co-main event, Michael Venom Page versus Shara Bullet Magomedov. This was a complete domination on the feet. Michael Venom Page looked way faster, more technical, more confident. Shara Bullet looked scared to throw anything, and that shows. He didn't land a single strike to the head until the 3rd round, midway through the 3rd round, which is ridiculous for a guy that's a striker. This is not to say that Shara Bullet's just an awful fighter. He's not good. He's still obviously a very good fighter, a very good striker, even, but Michael Venom Page just continues to show he's on another level in the striking. Easily outstruck Kevin Holland, easily outstruck Ian Gary, lost that fight in the grappling, but still easily outstruck Shara Bullet Magomedov. This was a good win by Michael Venom Page. It wasn't nearly as exciting as it was billed as, this massive striking battle, but it was interesting. It would have been more interesting, in my opinion, if Sharaputdin Magomedov was able to land anything, present any threat to Michael Venom Page, but he just couldn't. And as the rounds went on, it kind of became clear Michael Venom Page was going to win this, not only because he had won the last couple rounds, but because Sharaputdin is not necessarily a one-strike knockout threat. Obviously had that spinning back fist against Armen Petrosyan, but that's kind of a one-time thing. It took him so many shots in combination to knock out Truckali. Wasn't able to knock out Bruno Silva, which isn't an easy thing. Pereira couldn't do it either. But yeah, Shara Bullet loses his O. No longer an undefeated guy. He'll still probably be a big name. Probably a guy that still fights on every Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Dubai card. Hopefully he's able to stay active, keep that kickboxing activity, which is good, especially from a Dagestani. We don't really see that. But moving on. The idea of Michael Venom Page versus Leon Edwards was floated in the post-fight press conference with Dana. Dana said he's not against it. Obviously, that would mean Leon Edwards has to lose against Jack Della Maddalena, which I do think he will. So, assuming that happens, MVP versus Leon Edwards, British guy, two strikers. I think that also gives Leon Edwards a chance to work his grappling too. Gives Michael Venom Page a chance to prove himself against a guy that's considered like a top-level UFC striker. I think that's a matchup to make. That could headline maybe the next London fight night. And then Sharaputdin versus Kopylov is my pick for the next fight for Shara. Not that much lower than he was previously. He'll be out of the rankings, I'm sure, but this fight and another will get him right back in the rankings. Now, easier said than done against a guy like Roman Kopylov, who is another Russian guy. Similar striking style, very good kicks. Hands, fast. I think Kopylov is honestly just a more dangerous version of Sharaputdin Magomedov, just for whatever reason not as hyped. I guess because he doesn't beat people up in the mall and because he has two eyes. Weird. But, okay. And then Oliveira versus Said Nurmagomedov, Vinicius Oliveira, that is. This was a great fight. Best fight on the card at one fight of the night. Vinicius Oliveira beats Nurmagomedov. Loses the first round pretty clearly. I thought things were not going to go well for him, but fights back hard, able to gas Said Nurmagomedov out a bit, and just really comes on strong with the volume in that second and third round. Lands some really good shots, especially those body shots, and he takes that one. That was a great fight. Said Nurmagomedov looked amazing in the first 5, especially those first 1-2 minutes of the fight. Landed some massive spinning shots, some massive jumping kicks. He looked amazing. I thought he was going to get Vinicius Oliveira out of there fast and end up getting fast-tracked up the rankings. But he's still proved himself as a great fighter. It's just Vinicius Oliveira proved himself even more. You could tell that he did have a rib injury. I believe he said in his post-fight press conference, Vinicius Oliveira that is, that he does have a broken rib. I'm not sure whether that happened before the fight, in the beginning of the fight, but either way, makes it even more impressive. I know pretty much all fighters end up fighting with injury, but when it's a big, clear one like that and you still win, respect. So, in the post-fight press conference, Vinicius Oliveira called out Umar Nurmagomedov, which is interesting. I'm not sure he'll get that because I'm sure the UFC has other plans for Umar. They want to keep him right at the top of the division, but if it was a fair organization, this would be the good fight to make. Umar obviously coming from just fighting for a title to at the bottom of the rankings is kind of weird, but when you consider that Umar only has one single ranked win, this would be fair. It would make sense. In my opinion, Umar is probably the second or third best fighter in the division, but he'll probably should be ranked around 10 to 15 if we were doing merit-based ranking instead of skill-based ranking. So Umar versus Oliveira, I'd love to see that happen. I think it would be a good fight. I think Umar would be able to win in the wrestling and grappling, although Vinicius Oliveira did show some pretty impressive grappling in this fight. And then for Saeed Nurmagomedov, let's give him a guy like Montel Jackson, a guy that's just outside the rankings, a fun guy. Nurmagomedov deserves that. He doesn't need to be fighting bums at this point. He doesn't fight all that often anyway. He's a fun fighter. He's obviously a very skilled fighter too. So let's give him another fun guy just outside the rankings who deserves a good matchup because of a TKO in his last fight, and that's Montel Jackson. Alright, and then for the rest of this video, we're just going to go over the rest of the fights. Those were the three big good ones in my opinion. Then we got, this was the feature fight, Sergei Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Very boring fight. Dana hated this one. The crowd hated this one. It really wasn't all that bad, but anytime Sergei Pavlovich took down Jairzinho Rozenstruik, you know, that's the end of the round. Pavlovich is not finishing him. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is just going to lay on his back like a fat guy that is just tired. And I guess that's exactly what he is, a tired fat guy. So, good work, Sergei Pavlovich. You won that fight pretty clearly. Showed off some good wrestling, some decent grappling. Rocked Jairzinho a few times in the striking, actually, which is what I feel like Jairzinho Rozenstruik just wasn't offering that much of a threat that Sergei had to go to the wrestling every single time. I don't think he had to have a safe approach in this fight. I think he could have gotten the knockout that would have gotten him back in everybody's good graces. But it is what it is. Sergei wins. He'll be fighting up the rankings next. Maybe a Jailton Almeida after that fight. Yeah, we'll see. As for Jairzinho Rozenstruik, I'm not sure. He'll probably just keep fighting mid-level UFC heavyweights. Maybe like a Mick Parkin next time out. For SDM, good win against Mike Davis. I wasn't able to catch all of this one, but from what I could tell, Veresiam underrated in the grappling. Mike Davis was able to get top position a few times, but Veresiam was able to get out of that. And you can see here, he was able to get a few takedowns. He was able to land a lot more strikes in the feet. So that's good for him. Shamil Gaziev, big first round KO. Good to see. I feel like a lot of these heavyweight fights, they promise a big KO, and lately we haven't been seeing them lately. So that was good to see from Shamil Gaziev. He's a bit of like a meme, I understand, but he's actually pretty decent for a heavyweight guy. Powerful. We kind of knew that, but we didn't know that he could just kind of put guys out one strike, which is good. Great. Terrence McKinney, first round KO over Damir Hadzovic. Nice. McKinney's really good when it comes to fighting guys that are not as good as him. He's going to get easy TKOs. He's going to get easy KOs. It's just there's a certain level of guys that he hasn't been able to beat, which is an issue for him. Bogdan Grad, first round KO, or second round KO rather. A bit of a comeback. Lucas Alexander looked really slick in the striking, but Grad is a really tough guy. He was able to get 3 takedowns too, landed a bit more strikes. Good fight overall. I believe he won a performance bonus. So good for him. And that about wraps it up. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about it. I thought it was a good fight night. It didn't quite deliver all the way, but still really good, especially compared to what we've got coming up with things like UFC 312. But I'm not complaining. I enjoyed it. Kind of fun to have like a morning one for where I am. I'm in the central time zone in the United States. So yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments. I'll respond.